Your Eminence, Your Grace, Reverend Fathers, dear brothers and sisters in Christ, and friends, good morning. Christ is risen. It's a great honor and privilege to be with you this morning and to welcome you to our colloquium entitled Orthodox Christianity and Humanitarianism, Ideas and Action in the Contemporary World, which is sponsored by the Department of Inter-Orthodox, Ecumenical, and Interfaith Relations of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. A little over 2 years ago, right after being appointed the director of the department by His Eminence Archbishop Demetrius, people began to reach out to me, to contact me, to learn more about my priorities, my vision for the department, and early on the mission was, at least for me, to ensure that we maintain the relationships and the partnerships that we've established for so many years, so not to drop the ball, so to speak. With time, however, it became clear to me that there was an urgent need to find and refine the vision of inter-Orthodox, ecumenical, and interfaith relations and work so that the Church's witness could remain grounded on Christ's mandate to love one's neighbor while addressing modern issues and concerns. The need for a shift was especially highlighted by new and ongoing conflicts around the world. People would often call me or ask me why the Church wasn't saying anything about the attacks on Christians and other vulnerable communities in the Middle East, especially in Iraq and Syria, why we weren't getting involved in ending the fratricide in Ukraine, why we weren't standing in solidarity with countless Christians being persecuted in Africa and in Southeast Asia, why it was that so many other religious communities and nonprofits were doing something and it seemed that the Church was just doing nothing, standing by and watching. These questions really were daunting, and I did not know where to begin or how to begin addressing these issues. I knew that, at least anecdotally, that the Church was doing something. From what people were saying, the Church or churches around the world were involved. People of the Church were doing things to try to raise awareness at the very least. And I realized that the Church needed a better way of promoting its efforts and engaging and harnessing the energy of those interested in getting involved. With all this in mind, a new approach to ecumenical and interfaith work, as well as inter-Orthodox cooperation, could be cultivated by identifying those men and women who have studied and or who have dedicated their entire lives to humanitarian work. This colloquium, therefore, is an attempt to bring together these scholars and practitioners, and in so doing to learn from one another's experience and to build bridges across those barriers that often divide us for the sake of our neighbor. On behalf of His Eminence Archbishop Demetrius of America, I would like to thank our panelists, many of whom have traveled from distant places around the world, for their presence and active participation in the colloquium. We have with us, where is he? Dean Skedros. I wanted to thank you, Professor Dr. Skedros, and if you can please convey to Father Nicholas Tirandafilou, the president of Hellenic College Holy Cross, my sincere gratitude for his hospitality and the help of the school in organizing and planning this colloquium. Really, the school has given us and showed us Abrahamic hospitality, and I really am most grateful to be back here and to host such a colloquium here at Holy Cross. Also, please allow me the chance to acknowledge and to thank those who helped make this colloquium a reality. Special thanks are offered to the Archbishop Yakovos Leadership 100 Endowment Fund, which has generously funded this colloquium through a grant promoting the department's Church World Initiative for the past 2 years. I'm most grateful, of course, to my staff, to Nicholas Anton, with whom many of you have communicated throughout the many months, Dionysia Floropoulos, and of course one of our new interns, Stefan Furis. I would also like to publicly thank Dr. Elizabeth Prodromou for her guidance and support for many years. As kind of a person who has guided me during my studies at Boston University, but also with the planning and execution of this colloquium. So I thank you, Elizabeth, for your help in putting some meat to the bones for this colloquium. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome and thank those who are viewing and participating in the colloquium online through live streaming. I want to thank the Internet Ministries team for helping us with the audiovisual and the technical needs of this. For anyone who's going to be using social media at home or in the room, I'd like to bring to your attention that the hashtag that we're using for the colloquium and in general for what will be known as Orthodoxy and Humanitarianism is hashtag love your neighbor. So at this point, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you the presenters in our first panel. The panel is entitled Theological Foundations, Conceptual Architectures and Definitions of Humanitarianism. For those wondering about the connection between the Church's evangelical mission and her mission to service, we are indeed privileged to hear from His Grace Bishop Maxim Vasilovich, Dr. Timothy Miller, and Dr. Susan Holman. Aside from being the Bishop of the Western American Diocese of the Serbian Orthodox Church in North and South America, Bishop Maxim is a professor of patristics at the University of Belgrade and also to introduce to you the presenters in our first panel. The panel is entitled Theological Foundations, Conceptual Architectures and Definitions of Humanitarianism. For those wondering about the connection between the Church's evangelical mission and her mission to service, we are indeed privileged to hear from His Grace Bishop Maxim Vasilovich, Dr. Timothy Miller, and Dr. Susan Holman. Aside from being the Bishop of the Western American Diocese of the Serbian Orthodox Church in North and South America, Bishop Maxim is a professor of patristics at the University of Belgrade and also teaches Christian anthropology and sociology at the University of East Sarajevo. Dr. Miller has taught history at Salisbury University since 1983, and he is a trained Byzantinist and has authored 3 definitive books on Byzantine charitable institutions. Our final presenter this morning on this first panel is Dr. Holman, who is a scholar and writer in early Christian studies and the history of medicine. Her research focuses on conceptual translation of the past and how it continues to shape contemporary religious response